It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Chicka chicka boom boom. It's a Leo Be the Lion show. Boom boom. Gonna tell you what you need to know. Boom boom. Now here comes your boy Leo. Hey everybody, it's your boy Leo Be the Lion coming to you live from Respectable Street here on Clematis in beautiful West Palm Beach, Florida. You know me as Leo B the Lion, and if you want to follow me on any socials, it is Leo at Leo B the Lion Show. And I just changed my YouTube handle so it would match at Leo B the Lion Show. Thank you, YouTube, for letting me change the handle on that one. And you can search for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. This show is live from 5 to 6 here at Respectable Street on every Monday, and we talk about sports, business, and an eclectic mix of what comes out of my brain and what I want to choose to talk about for the day. It's sort of a grab bag of things, but I try to stick to sports and South Florida sports and give you that local flavor that you need. Now, today, we have a jam-packed show today. I have a lot to talk about, but first we're going to do a little short story time by me, and the story is The Lady or the Tiger by Frank Stockton. It's a classic American short story. Then, after that, after story time, we'll be getting into the national championship preview. Tonight is number 1 Georgia versus number 3 TCU at the culmination of the college football season. The last game of the year is the national championship on ESPN networks, and Georgia is a heavy, almost 2-touchdown favorite. So we'll give you a preview of that. Then I'll be getting into my NFL Week 18 news and notes. It was the last weekend of the NFL regular season, and a lot of drama happened. A lot of playoff spots were decided this past weekend, and we'll get into that. Maybe some teams shouldn't have tried to win, or some teams maybe should have tried to play for the draft pick, but we'll get into that and why I'm talking about you, Houston Texans. Also, we'll get into an NFL playoff preview, and we'll revisit my original preseason picks that I had for the playoffs. And here's a little preview. I didn't do that good on the NFC, but I did great in predicting my AFC preseason playoff predictions. Then we'll get into my soon-to-be world-famous hashtag 5-pack of picks. I'll give you a recap of my 5 picks I made last week, and I'll get into the hashtag 5-pack of picks for this week. Every week I make 5 picks against the spread in any sport, and I try to beat the casino, beat the bank, so I can put some money in your pocket. And then lastly, we'll be getting into my latest segment, and that is the hashtag words of encouragement, or hashtag whoa, and why it pays to get out of your comfort zone and to explore just what's outside of your comfort zone. So now, without further ado, this will be a rendition of The Lady and the Tiger by Frank Stockton. It's a short American short story. Frank Stockton lived he was born in the late 1800s and was alive during the turn of the century. And this was one of the stories that he told that generated a lot of controversy in the parlors, in the speakeasies, in the bars of what the decision should be made. Should the man pick the lady or the tiger? Let's get into it. In the very olden time, there lived a semi-barbaric king whose ideas, though somewhat polished and sharpened by the progressiveness of distant Latin neighbors, were still large, florid, and untrammeled, as became the half of him which was barbaric. He was a man of exuberant fancy, and withal of an authority so irresistible, at his will he turned his varied fancies into facts. He was greatly given to self-communing, and when he and himself agreed upon anything, the thing was done. When every member of his domestic and political systems moved smoothly in its appointed course, his nature was bland and genial. But whenever there was a little hitch, and some of his orbs got out of their orbits, he was blander and more genial still, for nothing pleased him so much as to make the crooked straight and crush down the uneven places. Among the borrowed notions by which his barbarism had become semified was that of the public arena, in which his exhibitions of manly and beastly valor, the minds of his subjects were refined and cultured. But even here, the exuberant and barbaric fancy asserted itself. The arena of the king was built, not to give people an opportunity of hearing the rhapsodies of dying gladiators, nor to enable them to view the inevitable conclusion of a conflict between religious opinions and hungry jaws, but for purposes far better adapted to widen and develop the mental energies of the people. The vast amphitheater, with its encircling galleries in mysterious vaults, and its unseen passages, was an agent of poetic justice, in which crime was punished or virtue rewarded by the decrees of an impartial and incorruptible chance. When a subject was accused of a crime of sufficient importance to interest the king, public notice was given that on the appointed day the fate of the accused person would be decided in the king's arena. A structure which well deserved its name, for although its form and plan were borrowed from afar, its purpose emanated solely from the brain of this man, who, every barleycorn a king, knew no tradition to which he owed more allegiance than pleased his fancy, and who engrafted on every adopted form of human thought and action the rich growth of his barbaric idealism. When all the people had assembled in the galleries, and the king, surrounded by his court, sat high up on his throne of royal state on one side of the arena, he gave a signal. A door beneath him opened, and the accused subject stepped out onto the amphitheater. Directly opposite him, on the other side of the enclosed space, were two doors, exactly alike and side by side. It was the duty of and the privilege of the person on trial to walk directly to these doors and open one of them. He could open either door he pleased. He was subject to no guidance or influence, but that the aforementioned impartial, incorruptible chance. If he opened the one, there came out of it a hungry tiger, the fiercest and most cruel that could be procured, which immediately sprang upon him and tore him to pieces as a punishment for his guilt. The moment that the case of the criminal was thus decided, doleful iron bells were clanged, great wails went up from the hired mourners posted on the outer rim of the arena, and the vast audience, with bowed heads and downcast hearts, wended slowly to their homeward way, mourning greatly so that one so young and fair, or so old and respected should have merited so dire a fate. But if the accused person opened the other door, there came forth from it a lady, the most suitable to his years and station that his majesty could select among his fair subjects, and to this lady he was immediately married as a reward for his innocence. It mattered not that he might already possess a wife and a family, or his affections might be engaged upon the object of his own selection. The king allowed no such subordinate arrangements to interfere with his great scheme of retribution and reward. The exercises, as in the other instance, took place immediately, and in the arena another door opened beneath the king, and a priest, followed by a band of choristers and dancing maidens, blowing joyous airs on golden horns and threading the epithalamic measure, advanced to where the pair stood side by side, and the wedding was promptly and cheerfully solemnized. Then the gay bass bells rang forth their merry peals, the people shouted glad hurrahs, and the innocent man, preceded by children strewing flowers on his path, led his bride to his home. This was the king's semi-barbaric method of administering justice. Its perfect fairness is obvious. The criminal could not know out of which door would come the lady. He opened either he pleased, without having the slightest idea whether in the next instant he was to be devoured or married. On some occasions the tiger came out of one door, and on some out of the other. The decision of this tribunal were not only fair, they were positively determinate. The accused person was instantly punished if he found himself guilty, and if innocent, he was rewarded on the spot, whether he liked it or not. There was no escape from the judgments of the king's arena. The institution was a very popular one. When the people gathered together on one of his great trial days, they never knew whether they were to witness a bloody slaughter or a hilarious wedding. This element of uncertainty lent an interest to the occasion which it could not otherwise have attained. Thus the masses were entertained and pleased, and the thinking part of the community could bring no charge of unfairness against this plan. For did not the accused person have the whole matter in his own hands? This semi-barbaric king had a daughter as blooming as his most florid fancies, and with a soul as fervent and imperious as his own. As is usual in such cases, she was the apple of his eye, and was loved by him above all humanity. Among his courtiers was a young man of that fitness of blood and lowness of station common to the conventional heroes of romance who love royal maidens. This royal maiden was well satisfied with her lover, for he was handsome and brave to a degree unsurpassed in all this kingdom, and she loved him with an ardor that had enough of barbarism in it to make it exceedingly warm and strong. This love affair moved on happily for many months, until one day the king happened to discover its existence. He did not hesitate nor waver in regard to his duty in the premises. The youth was immediately cast into prison, and a day was appointed for his trial in the king's arena. This, of course, was an especially important occasion, and His Majesty, as well as all the people, was greatly interested in the workings and development of this trial. Never before had such a case occurred. Never before had a subject dared to love the daughter of the king. In after years, such things became commonplace enough, but then they were in no slight degree novel and startling. The tiger cages of the kingdom were searched for their most savage and relentless beasts, from which the fiercest monster might be selected for the arena, and the ranks of maiden youth and beauty throughout the land were carefully surveyed by competent judges, in order that the young man might have a fitting bride in case fate did not determine for him a different destiny. Of course, everybody knew that the deed with which the accused was charged had been done. He had loved the princess, and neither he, she, nor anyone else thought of denying that fact. But the king would not think of allowing any fact of this kind to interfere with the workings of the tribunal, in which he took such great delight and satisfaction. No matter how the affair turned out, the youth would be disposed of, and the king would take an aesthetic pleasure in watching the course of events, which would determine whether or not the young man had done wrong in allowing himself to love the princess. The appointed day arrived. From far and near, the people gathered and thronged the great galleries of the arena. The crowds, unable to gain admittance, massed themselves against the outside walls. The king and his court were in their places. Opposite the twin doors, those fateful portals, so terrible in their similarity. All was ready. The signal was given. The door beneath the royal party opened, and the lover of the princess walked into the arena. Tall, beautiful, fair, his appearance was greeted with a low hum of admiration and anxiety. Half the audience had not known so grand a youth had lived among them. No wonder the princess loved him. What a terrible thing for him to be there. As the youth advanced into the arena, he turned, as the custom was, to bow to the king. But he did not think at all of that royal personage. His eyes were fixed upon the princess, who sat to the right of her father. Had it not been for the moiety of barbarism in her nature, it is probable that the lady would not have been there, but her intense and fervid soul would not allow her to be absent on an occasion in which she was so terribly interested. From the moment that the decree had gone forth that her lover should decide his fate in the king's arena, she had thought of nothing, night nor day, but this great event and the various subjects connected with it. Possessed of more power, influence, and the force of character than anyone who had ever been interested in such a case, she had done what no other person had done. She had possessed herself the secret of the doors. She knew in which of the two rooms that lay behind those doors stood the cage of the tiger, with its open front, and in which waited the lady. Through these thick doors, heavily curtained with skins on the inside, it was impossible that any noise or suggestion should come from within to the person who should approach to raise the latch on one of them. But gold and the power of a woman's will had brought the secret to the princess. And not only did she know in which room stood the lady ready to emerge, all blushing and radiant, should her door be opened, but she knew who the lady was. It was one of the fairest and loveliest of the damsels of the court who had been selected as the reward of the accused youth. Should he be proved innocent of the crime aspiring to one so far above him? And the princess hated her. Often had she seen or imagined that she had seen this fair creature throwing glances of admiration upon the person of her lover, and sometimes she thought these glances were perceived and even returned. Now and then she had seen them talking together. It was but for a moment or two, but much can be said in a brief space. It may have been on most unimportant topics, but how could she know that? The girl was lovely, but she had dared to raise her eyes to the loved one of the princess, and with all the intensity of the savage blood transmitted to her through long lines of holy barbaric ancestors, she hated the woman who blushed and trembled behind that silent door. When her lover turned and looked at her, and his eyes met hers as she sat there paler and whiter than anyone in the vast ocean of anxious faces about her, he saw, by that power of quick perception which is given to those whose souls are one, that she knew behind which door crouched the tiger and behind which stood the lady. He had expected her to know it. He understood her nature, and his soul was assured that she would never rest, and she had made plain to herself this thing, hidden to all others lookers on, even to the king. The only hope for the youth in which there was any element of certainty was based upon the success of the princess discovering this mystery, and the moment he looked upon her, he saw that she had succeeded. In his soul he knew she would succeed. Then it was his quick and anxious glance that asked the question, which? It was as plain to her as if he shouted it from where he stood. There was not an instant to be lost. The question was asked in a flash, and it must be answered in another. Her right arm lay on the cushioned parapet before her. She raised her hand and made a slight, quick movement toward the right, but no one but her lover saw her. Every eye but his was fixed on the man in the arena. He turned, and with a firm and rapid step, walked across the empty space. Every heart stopped beating, every breath was held, every eye was fixed immovably upon that man. Without the slightest hesitation, he went to the door on the right, and he opened it. Now, the point of the story is this. Did the tiger come out of that door, or did the lady? The more we reflect upon this question, the harder it is to answer. It involves a study of human heart, which leads us through devious mazes of passion, out of which it is difficult to find our way. Think of it, fair reader, not as if the decision of the question depended upon yourself, but upon that hot-blooded, semi-barbaric princess, her soul at a white heat beneath the combined fires of despairs and jealousy. She had lost him, but who should have him? How often in her waking hours and in her dreams had she started in wild horror and covered her face with her hands as she thought of her lover opening the door on the other side of which waited the cruel fangs of the tiger. But how much oftener had she seen him at the other door? How in her grievous reveries had she gnashed her teeth and tore her hair when she saw him stare with rapturous delight as he opened the door of the lady. How her soul had burned in agony when she had seen him rush to meet that woman. With her flushing cheek and sparkling eye of triumph, when she had seen him lead her forth, his whole frame kindled with the joy of recovered life, when she had heard the glad shouts from the multitude and the wild ringing of the happy bells, when she had seen the priest with very eyes, and when she had seen them walk away together upon their path of flowers, followed by the tremendous shouts of the hilarious multitude, in which her one despairing sheik was lost and drowned, would it not be better for him to die at once and to go wait for her in the blessed regions of semi-barbaric futurity? And yet that awful tiger, those strikes, that blood. Her decision had been indicated in an instant, but it had made after days and nights of anguished deliberation. She had known she would be asked. She had decided what her answer, and without the slightest hesitation, she moved her hand to the right. The question of her decision is one not to be lightly considered, and it is not for me to presume to set myself up as the one person able to answer it. And so I leave it with all of you. Which came out of the open door? The lady or the tiger? Now, that was The Lady or the Tiger by Frank Stockton. It's a famous American short story. And during that time when The Lady or the Tiger story came out, there was a question in the parlors, in the bars, in the speakeasies about, what would come out, The Lady or the Tiger? If your lover, I can't speak for men because I think, and not to sound sexist, but I think that men are more chivalrous when it comes to things and more caring about their lover, that she said, okay, well, at least, I would want my lover to be happy and not die. So I'd probably pick the lady. But what the author Frank Stockton said about the semi-barbaric princess, she wouldn't want her lover to be in the arms of another and be wed, and she would have to live with the fact that her lover, the one that she's deeply so in love with, is living and happy with another woman. So most likely, in my opinion, I believe that the princess told her lover to go to the tiger door and sent her lover to the tiger to be destroyed, because she probably rationalized that, oh, I'll probably just see him in heaven. If he just goes to the tiger, I'll probably see him in heaven anyway, and then I won't have to be jealous of him for the rest of the life. So I just thought that was something because we still deal with those decisions every day. Not only on the Leo Be the Lion show, not only in my life, but I know every one of you out there listening deals with tough decisions. Maybe not life or death decisions, but it just shows how many and how many factors go into making decisions, and how we may never know really the outcome of the decision, as you might never see the outcome of your decision that you made, but it will still have far-reaching effects. And I like to think that's the moral of the story, is that your decisions have effects, whether you like it or not, or whether you chose that or not. Your decisions that you make do have effects on you. Now, after the short story time by Leo Be the Lion, we're going to get into football. That egg-shaped round ball made of pigskin. We're going to be talking about first the national championship preview tonight. Coverage starts on ESPN networks at 7:30 p.m. It is the juggernaut defending national champions of University of Georgia Bulldogs. They won their first national championship last year since 1980. It was a 41-year drought, and now they face a 13-1 TCU team that's ranked number 3 and beat and upset number 2 Michigan to get to the college football national championship. When the game is going to be played in Los Angeles in SoFi Stadium, but according to ESPN Radio, what I've heard and been listening, the crowd is more TCU fans than Georgia fans at this point. But just wait. I'm pretty sure the Bulldog fans will even out eventually towards the start of game time, and we'll see when it kicks off, who has the edge in terms of a home field advantage, if there is any, because it's on such a neutral site. Texas is closer. TCU is closer to California, so that may have an effect on if people travel or not. But I really think those Georgia fans are ravenous and and really care about that Georgia program. So, and SEC is just different down there, so I really think Georgia fans are going to be traveling. Like I said, Georgia's looking to repeat, and TCU is looking for their first national title since 1938. You say 1938, did that even count? Well, the quarterback for them was Davey O'Brien, and now in 2023 we have a Davey O'Brien trophy for the best quarterback of the year. He won the Heisman that year, and TCU won the national championship in 1938. Keep in mind that was during the Depression, and that was just a lot of teams in early college football were getting some national championships. I believe Georgia Tech has one from back that early in the day. Now, let's look at the offenses. If we look at the two quarterbacks, Stetson Bennett, a sixth-year player. He's 25 years old. He knows the Georgia offense inside and out. The defense trusts with their entire unit, trusts Stetson Bennett to make good plays on offense and not put the defense in a bad position. But Max Duggan on the other side, the quarterback for TCU, is a tremendous, tremendous quarterback. He was a Heisman finalist. He lost to Caleb Williams in the Heisman, but he was a Heisman finalist nonetheless. And even though he lost to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship, he has been one of the reasons why TCU is on their historic national championship run this year. He is a fourth-year player. He was at first. He was a senior. He started the season on the bench, and he was able to win the starting job after the first game, and he didn't look back. There's a running back for TCU called Kendre Miller. He's questionable for the game. He hurt his knee, his right leg. I'm not sure if it was knee or ankle last in the semifinal, but he's questionable for the game. If he can't go, TCU's offense will take a hit because they like to set up the passing game with the run. They like to do short little swing passes as well. And then we have Quentin Johnston on TCU. Quentin Johnston is a big 6'4" receiver that when he was injured during the season for a few games, the TCU offense kind of struggled and got off to fits and starts. But since he's been back, since he's been 100%, he's been a large reason, a great percentage of why TCU was able to beat Michigan, because when a clutch catch needed to be made, it was Quentin Johnston that was making those catches. Now, I know Georgia has a decent offense, but I'm giving the edge to TCU because you have to give the edge to the quarterback, Max Duggan. I think Stetson Bennett is a great quarterback, but there's something about being really old, and yeah, he's another player coach on the field. Stetson Bennett is. He's like a player coach because he knows the offense forwards and backwards and sideways. But I give the edge to Max Duggan because not only can Max Duggan, if you needed to, run the ball, but he can throw the ball. If Max Duggan has to throw the ball 45 times, I don't see a problem with that. But if Stetson Bennett has to throw the ball 45 times, I see a huge problem with that because Georgia's offense isn't meant to be airing it out like that and have to put the team on the backs of the passing game. Now let's look at the defense after giving the edge to TCU on offense. UGA's defense is its calling card when it comes to the SEC and Georgia Bulldogs. In the past, SEC was known for their defenses and running game. Offensive now, like Alabama and other offense have tried to get into the passing game, but you need a dynamic quarterback, and I don't think Stetson Bennett is very dynamic at that. Yeah, he has some legs, he can run, but like I just said, TCU's defense may not be the best defense and may be far from it. They may be in the bottom half of the NCAA when it comes to their defense and scoring defense. And yeah, they're kind of suspect. But they seem to get stronger when it matters most. They seem to bend but don't break. Whereas they'll let teams go up and down the field, but then red zone defense, they step it up when they need to. You saw in the shootout with Michigan that they have, it was 51-45. And you saw in the shootout with Michigan that they had that it was who was going to blink first, and Michigan blinked first, and TCU was able to come away with the victory. TCU's defense was able to step up when it needed to. Georgia, on the other hand, is one of the top 10 defenses in the country, one of the top 10 scoring defenses in the country, with points allowed at 15.7 in the NCAA. It's first against the rush with only 84 yards a game, so look for that to be a strength for strength when you have Kendre Miller, if he plays, versus the Georgia defensive line and linebackers. We'll see if that is a strength for strength. But I'm giving the edge for the defenses. I'm giving that edge to UGA and the Bulldogs because, like I said, Georgia's defense is their calling card. Georgia's defense is clearly their best unit out of all three: offense, defense, special teams. I look for Georgia's defense to try and set the tone early. If they can get a fumble, sack, strip sack, interception, some type of takeaway, or shut TCU's defense out early, and if Georgia can get up to an early lead, then I believe that Georgia will take it. On the other hand, if TCU gets up to an early lead like how Ohio State did on Georgia, I believe TCU will be able to hold that lead versus Georgia, whereas Ohio State last week couldn't hold that lead. So, offense edge to TCU, defensive edge to UGA. Now let's look at both special teams. When we're talking special teams, I'm talking primarily the kickers because as a Dolphins fan, you know that I want the Dolphins to get rid of Jason Sanders. I'll get into that in a little bit later. But I believe kickers are going to come into play, especially when it's an outdoor arena. You need the kickers to be accurate. I don't think the wind is going to play a factor, but just something about being outdoors and being on a field outdoors will affect the kicks. The prediction from me, I believe that TCU is going to shock the world and win close on a last-second field goal, 31-30. Georgia will probably be leading, and TCU will try to make a little comeback towards the end of the game. And Max Duggan will be able to put the TCU kicker in position to win the game 31-30 on a late kick. If Duggan has the ball late, I expect fireworks, expect drama, late game drama if Max Duggan has the ball late to give TCU a chance to succeed and win the game. I think it's going to come down to who blinks first, what team's defense makes a costly mistake to give that team a new life, a new set of downs, or a costly mistake to let a receiver get behind you and have a defensive breakdown that allows a touchdown to get scored. So for special teams, I'll give the edge to UGA because the kicker of the year was, in the SEC, was the Georgia kicker. He was 25 of 30 and 1 for 3 from 50 yards plus. TCU's kicker was 17 of 19 and 1 for 2 from 50 yards plus. But UGA has more action, so for 30 kicks, only to make 25 out of 30, that's pretty darn good as a kicker. Like I said, my prediction is that TCU will shock the world. TCU is a 13.5-point underdog as it stands right now. I personally could see this game going either way, but, I'm not going to just be neutral. I'm going to pick a side and live with my side. I will always give it to you and be real and always pick a side. Like, we're not going to be lukewarm with it. So I'm going with TCU. I'm sticking with TCU. I've been riding with TCU all season. Let's go, you Horned Frogs. Let's go, TCU. Let's take care of those Bulldogs. Poison the Bulldogs with your horny toads. And let's get it done, TCU. So TCU wins 31-30 on a late field goal. Now, after talking about national championship preview, let's go, TCU. We're going to get into the NFL Week 18 news and notes and get into the playoff picture. I want to recap how I did in predicting the playoff picture. I did pretty well in the AFC. I guess I know more about the AFC than I did in the NFC, but we'll get into it. The first game that I'm going to talk about, though, and you all know me, it's Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1. Let's go, Dolphins, because we're talking Super Bowl, baby. The Dolphins were able to beat the Jets at home to clinch a playoff spot, and they beat them 11-6. Now, I originally thought it was 9-6, and after I saw the score late, it said 11-6. Well, on the last play, the Jets were trying to lateral it and do backwards passes to try and have a miracle in Miami, but they ended up passing the ball backwards into the end zone. The ball went out of bounds, and the Dolphins were awarded a safety on the last play of the game. So the Dolphins moved to 7-0 in their last 7 games against the Jets in Miami. Jason Sanders exercised the demons because he was clutch yesterday, going 3 for 3, 2 from 37 yards out and 1 from 50 yards out to win the game with 17 seconds left. Jason Sanders, thank you for finally making 1 from 50 or plus yards. This season he has been 0 for 5 from 50-plus yard field goals. Well, he decided the last day of the season he's going to make 1. So let's go, Jason Sanders. You're still going to be cut probably after this year. We're going to pick up another kicker or bring someone to compete, because as soon as the Dolphins signed Jason Sanders as the highest kicker in the league, he started being trash. And it's funny what happens when some people get money. They start to rest on their laurels and not practice as hard. It's funny that some players do that, and some players get money and they play harder because they know they have a responsibility to play harder. So Jason Sanders was the former. He stopped caring and he stopped being able to make field goals, but I'm just glad he made 1 when they counted last night. The Dolphins, they can make some noise in the playoffs. They're playing the Bills on Wild Card Sunday, and they're playing them, of course, in Buffalo. The Bills are the 2 seed, and the Buffalo Bills have lost to the Dolphins. It's 1-1 in the series, and I really believe that if Tua comes back healthy, now that's the big if. That's the biggest if of the season. If Tua can play and start against the Bills, I firmly believe that the Dolphins will be in the game in the fourth quarter. I can't tell you if we're going to win, but I can tell you if Tua's in the game, the Dolphins will be ready to have a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter. Josh Allen is good for 1 to 2 mistakes of the game. It just depends how severe those mistakes are. It can be anything from being 4th and goal and him one-hopping a receiver to have an incomplete pass as a mistake, or it can be that he throws an interception. You never know with Josh Allen. That's why I still consider him a little bit overrated. Yeah, he has a cannon for an arm. Yeah, he runs like a fast tight end. But when it comes down to it, he's not the most accurate quarterback. So I believe the Dolphins do have a chance, despite being 10 in the hook underdogs against the Bills in Buffalo this Sunday coming up. Skylar Thompson was able to step in and get us a first victory with a backup quarterback this season. The Dolphins before this were 0-5 with their backup starting, or were 0-4 with the backup starting in the game. Now the Dolphins are 1-4 with the backup starting because Skylar Thompson was able to manage the game and not turn the ball over. Yeah, he didn't look the best, but he made good plays. He stood in the pocket, and he got rid of the ball when he needed to, and we got clutch first downs. We were able to keep drives alive, and we were able to get in field goal range 3 times, and the Jets were only getting field goal range. Well, actually, they got in range 3 times, but they missed one. Thank you, Jets. And so I'm just happy that the Dolphins are playoff bound at 9-8. Shout out to my buddy Andrew. We made a gentleman's wager that I said the Dolphins would have a better record than the Bucks to finish the season, and that is correct. The Dolphins are 9-8, and the Bucks are 8-9. So Andrew, I take Zelle, cash, credit, however you want to do it, big dog. And one more thing about this game, the defense played well, and the defense, it's been a tale of 2 years because last year the defense was the Dolphins' calling card, and we were great against the pass, and we couldn't stop the run. This year, the Dolphins' defense has been markedly worse, but we're better against the run and worse against the pass. But yesterday, the Dolphins were able to make clutch plays at the end of the game to seal the victory. There was twice where Joe Flacco threw deep passes towards the sidelines for Garrett Wilson, and twice Xavier Howard was able to deflect the passes without interfering and without causing pass interference. If you looked at the replays, yeah, the Jets fans would say, oh, that's pass interference. But if you looked at the replays, it was Garrett Wilson who was initiating contact with Xavier Howard. And Garrett Wilson purposely tried to keep his hand on Xavier Howard to get the refs to call a flag against the Dolphins and move the Jets into field goal position. And I'm glad that the refs kept their whistle and their flags in their pocket. So it was a great job by the defense in late game situations. We got a pass deflection. We were able to stop the run when we needed to. And I'm just proud of the way the Dolphins took care of business against one of our arch rivals in the Jets and won our 7th straight against the Jets in Miami. The last 7 games against the Jets in Miami, the Dolphins are 7-0. I'm so glad we did that because it would have been tough to come in and do the show if we had lost to the Jets. Now, Finns take on the Bills next week. Like I said, the 2 seed versus the 7 seed. Chiefs are the 1 seed, so they get the bye. Trust me when I say this. You're going to want to take the Dolphins plus the points because if Tua plays, or even if Tua doesn't play, we are built to compete against the Bills. The Dolphins are built to compete against the Bills. We have fast receivers on the outside. We have a good tight end in the middle. We can run the ball. And our defense is built to stop the pass. Although our defense hasn't always done that this year, it is built to stop the pass. We were able to, even though the Dolphins were on the field for 90-plus plays in Week 3, the Dolphins were able to hold the Bills' offense to 17 points. And we won that game 21-19. Let's go, Dolphins. Let's get into the next game of the NFL Week 18 news and notes, and that is the Jags versus the Titans. And this game was a winner-take-all for the 4th seed in the AFC playoffs. The winner of this would be the division winner of the worst division of football, and that is the AFC South. Well, I wouldn't say it's the worst division in football. I think the NFC South is probably the worst division in football, but the Jags, Titans, Colts, and Texans are pretty bad when it comes to a collective division. Sorry, Telly. My friend is a Titans fan. I hate to do him like that, but that's a bad division this year. The Jags beat the Titans 20-16, and they clinched the 4th seed in the playoffs. The Jags have a home playoff game at 9-8, and they have to play the Chargers come into town to play the Jags. The NFL needs to do something about that where, yeah, you might be a division winner, but if you have a worse record, you shouldn't be able to host a playoff game, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. The Jags are a scrappy young team. Look for them to not go away. They're going to be in it all game. They don't know any better. That's how young of a team they are. And Doug Peterson is going to have Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne in that offense ready to play. The defense is a good defense. And with the Jags playing the Chargers before in California, They played the Chargers before in California and won 38-10. So I like the Jags in this matchup. The Jags are right now 1-point underdogs at home. And so and I think I mentioned this before on other Leo Be the Lion shows, if it's a home dog, that line is a little fugazi. So you want to give the home dogs extra attention because they tend to win outright when they're home dogs, especially in football. Now, speaking of Leo Be the Lion Show, if you want to follow me on Twitter and IG, it's at Leo Be the Lion Show. And on YouTube, it's my handle, Leo Be the Lion Channel. Or if you search at Leo Be the Lion Show, my channel will pop up. I appreciate if you can subscribe and comment on what you think about my picks and or debate. Or if you think it was a lady or a tiger that was behind those doors. Now, let's go to Tampa. Let's go west from Jacksonville to Tampa and talk about the Bucs in their season finale against the Falcons. The Bucs had a chance to move to one game above 500 at 9-8 against the Falcons. However, they crapped the bed and lost 30-17, backing into the playoffs. The Bucs are 8-9 in the NFC South, the worst division in football, and it looks like it's going to be Tom Brady's last hurrah. Yeah, we've said this here, Leo Be the Lion Show. I've been saying that Tom Brady needs to retire. As a Dolphins fan, for the last 25 years, he's had a chokehold on the AFC East, and then when he went to the NFC South, he already had a Brady bunch of Super Bowls. He already had 6 Super Bowls, but then he had to just not be satisfied with 6 Super Bowls, and he went to Tampa and won his 7th Super Bowl, and he lost his marriage because of it. He gave up his wife and his kids' relationship, all because he wanted to play football and come out of retirement after he had promised Giselle, oh, okay, I'll stop playing, I'll retire. And he had a lucrative job at Fox waiting for him, and he still does at Fox waiting for him whenever he retires. So this is going to be Tom Brady's last hurrah. I expect the Cowboys to knock them out in the first round. Right now, the Bucs are home dogs at 3-point home underdogs, but I expect the Cowboys to take care of business after coming to their senses last week and the Cowboys losing. I expect the Cowboys to play strong and not be a one-and-done and upset the 4th-ranked team, 4th-seeded team. And after all, the Bucs are 8-9. The Bucs are under 500. Tom Brady has never lost 9 games in his career in the regular season. So that just a lot of crazy things happening with that. Then let's get into the Bills beating the Pats in Buffalo 35-23. Thank you, Buffalo, for beating the Pats. The Dolphins needed the Buffalo Bills to beat the Patriots so that the Dolphins could get in the playoffs. Thanks, Buffalo. You guys are good for wings and snow. And so good job, Buffalo. But it's going to be a divisional AFC matchup. Bills-Dolphins first round. The Bills and Dolphins have had some epic playoff matchups in the past with Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, and them guys. And I'm looking for this to be exactly and a very exciting playoff matchup. The Dolphins can beat the Bills. And anybody who says that they can't really doesn't know football. And I'm not just saying this as a Dolphins fan. It's any given Sunday, any team can beat any other team. That's how we saw the Colts almost beat the Eagles or the Colts or the Texans to somehow beat the Titans. Like, that didn't make any sense. Now, it just depends, in my opinion, to which team is healthier. The Dolphins had some injuries. Raheem Mostert got banged up in Week 18. And the Bills are getting Damar Hamlin back. The one thing that worries me about that is that I'm worried that the Damar Hamlin situation, thank God that he's okay and that he's walking around and he has no ill effects from his cardiac arrest that he suffered last week. And I'm happy that he's alive. Thank you to the first responders that saved his life with CPR for upwards of 10 minutes. They did CPR before the paramedics arrived in the AED machine to shock his heart back into life. And he spent a week in intensive care. Thank you for that. I'm glad that he's okay. But I pray that the Bills aren't like on the Saints when the Saints came back after Hurricane Katrina and won the Super Bowl. I hope the Bills aren't the team of destiny this year and playing for Damar Hamlin. Let's go, Dolphins. Let's take care of business and shock the world. Beat the Bills in the first round. Let the Bills be one and done. And we'll be the class of the AFC East for this year. Now, one more game I want to get into before I give you the playoff preview, and that is the Texans beating the Colts. Now, you might say, Leo, be the line. Why did you pick this game to talk about in the NFL News and Notes? The combined wins for these teams are 5, and they were battling for the first round pick, the first overall pick. So that's kind of why I picked this for the News and Notes. The Texans were able to win on a last-second 2-point conversion with time expired to win the game. And Lovie Smith went for 2 to try to win the game. But what had everyone scratching their heads was if the Texans lost this game, they would get the first overall pick. But since the Texans went for 2 and won the game, the Bears have the first overall pick now, and the Texans are just more of a mess than they've ever been. So the Texans at 3-13-1 lost out on their first overall pick. Now, before we get into the NFL playoff preview, just reminding you one more time to follow me on Twitter and IG at the Leo Be the Lion Show, and search for me on YouTube at Leo Be the Lion Show, and take a look at my videos. I post segments from here, the Leo Be the Lion Show, where I record live from 5 to 6 at Respectable Street every Monday, and I also post little shorts and videos about what's going on in the daily life of Leo Be the Lion. So check it out. Now, in this NFL playoff preview, let me just take you to my preseason picks of what I thought was the playoff so we can all have a laugh. And here's just another quick saying that I've always liked. You want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans. Well, look at my predictions. My predictions for the AFC were the Bills as the 1 seed, the Chiefs 2 seed, Ravens 3 seed, Colts 4 seed, Dolphins 5 seed, Chargers 6 seed, and the 7th seed, the Steelers. Well, I correctly picked 5 out of 7 playoff teams in the AFC. I got the Bills, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Ravens, the Chargers, and the Dolphins right, and I missed on the Colts and the Steelers. I thought the Colts were going to be good this year. I really thought the Colts were going to, with Matt Ryan, they had a good team around them. I thought they were going to be like the Niners with Jimmy Garoppolo, and with a good team around you, I thought Matt Ryan was going to play better. And the Steelers just barely missed the playoffs because the Dolphins won. And so can't fault me for that. Now, the NFC predictions, I was completely wrong. In this order, I thought it was going to be from the 1 seed to the 7th seed, the Packers, the Cardinals, New Orleans, Washington, Los Angeles, Dallas, and Tampa Bay. I got 2 out of those 7 playoff teams correctly. I was able only to pick the Tampa Bay Bucks and the Dallas Cowboys as my playoff teams. And that's because, in part, the Rams had a historically bad year, the worst defending champ year that has ever happened in the NFL. The Packers, Cardinals, New Orleans, all underachieved, and Washington was just Washington. So you know how that goes. Now, the 2023 playoffs are set. We got in the AFC, we have the Chiefs with the first round bye at 14-3. Then we have the Bills that play the 7th-seeded Dolphins, the Bengals that play the 6th-seeded Ravens, the Jags that play the 5th-seeded Chargers, and in the NFC, we have the Eagles with the first round bye. The Eagles are 14-3. Then we have the hottest team in the league right now. If you told me what my Super Bowl favorite would be, I think if I had to put money on it, I think it might be the 49ers, because the 49ers are such a complete team. Their defense is stout. Their offense is an overachiever, because even with Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, and Mr. Irrelevant means you were picked last in the NFL draft, he's playing great for the 49ers. So expect the 49ers to make it deep into the playoffs. Then we have the Vikings, the Bucks, the Cowboys, the Giants, and the Seahawks. For the first week, the Super Wildcard weekend, the 49ers are going to play the Seahawks, which is an NFC West divisional matchup. Then we have the Vikings playing the Giants, which I like the Giants to upset the Vikings first round. Then we have the Bucks playing the Cowboys to round out the NFC Super Wildcard weekend. And I like the Cowboys to beat the Bucks in that situation. My Super Bowl prediction at the beginning of the year was the Dolphins versus Packers. I'm a Dolphins homer, so you know I'm going to try and pick the Dolphins. And I really thought the Packers were going to meet their expectations and not underachieve. But the Packers severely underachieved and were 5-8 at one point. So that didn't get it done. And I predict now that it's going to be a Giants-Bills Super Bowl. It's going to be a rematch of the 1990 Super Bowl where the Bills missed a kick wide right and the Giants won 20-19. I believe this because the Bills are, quote-unquote, that team of destiny after Damar Hamlin got injured with his cardiac arrest. I'm so happy that he's okay. And the Giants it's just one of those years for the Giants where you say to yourself, man, the Giants are flying under the radar. Nobody's talking about the Giants as being contenders, and yet all they do was lock up a playoff spot a week early. So I really think the Giants can make some waves in the NFL playoffs and try to make a playoff Super Bowl run because they have a defense and a running game. And anytime you have a defense and a running game and you have a serviceable quarterback in Daniel Jones, who is known for his legs first, he can't run the ball. But lately this season, he's been coming on as a better passer and doing just enough to help his team win the game. They've beaten teams like the Ravens. They've beaten teams like the Eagles. They've beaten teams. They've been world beaters this year. So I expect my Super Bowl prediction, even though I'm a Dolphins fan and I would love for them to get there, and it's tough for me to say, my Super Bowl prediction is the Giants versus Bills, a rematch of Super Bowl in 1990. I want to say that's Super Bowl 23, but don't quote me on it. I know every Super Bowl. If you told me Super Bowl 23, I wouldn't know. But if you told me what year it happened, I'd be able to tell you which Super Bowl it was and what happened. So now, after talking about the NFL playoff preview, let's talk about my hashtag 5-Pack-A-Pick recap. I was 42-35 coming into this last week, and I made 5 picks for the NFL because there was no college games on last week. And so the first pick I made against the spread was the Steelers laying 3 versus the Browns. The Steelers had to win this game because they were trying to get into the playoffs. They needed the Dolphins and the Patriots to lose, and the Steelers won 28-20, moved me to 1-0 on my picks. Then I picked the Lions +5 versus the Packers. The Lions won outright 20-16, moved me to 2-0 on my hashtag 5-Pack-A-Picks. Then I picked the Dolphins laying the 2 points versus the Jets. Dolphins won 11-6, and you'd say, how was it 2 points? Well, at the beginning of the week when I make my picks, the line hadn't moved, and at kickoff, the Dolphins-Jets line was 3.5. Well, the Dolphins were laying 2 points when I picked it, so Dolphins won 11-6. That brought me to 3-0. Then, on Saturday night, I picked the Jags to lay the 6 points against the Titans, and I was disappointed because the Titans really were playing with their third-string quarterback in Joshua Dobbs, and the Jags only won 20-16, so I didn't cover that. That brought me to 3-1 on my 5-Pack-A-Picks. Then I picked the Pats +7.5 versus the Bills because I thought the Pats were going to play as hard as they could, but the Bills won by 12. So that was a loss, brought me to 3-2 of that week, which brings my overall record of my 5-Pack-A-Picks to 45-37-2, which is a 53.5% win percentage. Now let's go to my hashtag 5-Pack-A-Picks for the new week. The first pick is the national championship game, and yes, I alluded to it earlier. I think TCU is going to win, but I don't have the discretionary income to risk putting all my money on the TCU money line. So I'm going TCU plus the 13.5. I've been riding with TCU all year. I've been making pick after pick. If you follow my Leo Be the Lion episodes and you go to my hashtag 5-Pack-A-Picks, you'll see I'm picking TCU almost every week, and they've covered almost every week. They're 13-1 straight up, and I believe they're like 12-2 or 10-4 against the spread. Now, give me TCU also another reason because Mattress Mac, the famous bettor who won the most money ever from Vegas in one bet, put $1.5 million on TCU to win the game straight up. If he wins that bet, he'll win $5.2 million. That's how big of an underdog TCU is. So we're riding with Mattress Mac. I'm not going to put 1.5 mil on. I might put $1.5 on it. But TCU plus 13 for my first and 5. Then give me Jacksonville home underdog versus the Chargers in the wild card weekend. Jags are a young team, so they'll be ready to play. Chargers are weird. Their coach is weird. Brandon Staley, he makes weird decisions. They played their starters in a meaningful game into the fourth quarter, and Mike Williams got injured. Their second best receiver got injured. So Chargers are weird. Give me the Jags plus the 1 at home, being a home dog. Then third pick in my hashtag 5-pack of picks for the new week is the Dolphins plus 10.5 in Buffalo. The series is 1-1 this year. Dolphins took it at home. Bills took it in Buffalo. And this is the rubber match. If Tua plays well, or if Tua plays, period, I'll feel better about the game, and I think the Dolphins will be competitive in the game late in the fourth quarter. And we'll see if Tua can put a game-winning drive together. Go Dolphins 10.5 point dogs. For my fourth pick, I'm going with the Giants plus 3 versus the Vikings. The Giants taking the points. Like I mentioned earlier, the Giants are a good team defense. They have a good running game, and they're being underrated. The years that the Giants are under the radar, they overachieve. The year that Giants are picked to go to the Super Bowl, they go 5-11. Don't ask me how that is, but it's just a thing that's been happening since I started following the Giants. Then the Vikings like to run the ball and play action, so if the Giants can stop the run, Dalvin Cook, I believe that the Giants will have an even easier time against the Vikings. For my fifth and final hashtag 5-pack of picks for this week, it's the Cowboys laying 3 against Tampa Bay. Come on, Dallas. Come on, Big D. Get it done. Send Brady into retirement. And Dallas, don't play with your food. Like Giannis Antetokounmpo said last year, don't play with your food, Dallas. Take care of business early in the first half. Put the Bucks away and go on, get ready for the next team that you're going to have to play. Now, with these last few minutes left, if you haven't already, go ahead and give me a follow at Leo B. The Lion Show on YouTube and on socials at Leo B. The Lion Show. Hey, what's up, bud? I appreciate listening. And you know what? I like to talk about anything and all things. I can basically go into a crowd and you can pull up a subject and I'll talk about it. And I like to think that's because I like to get out of my comfort zone. So for my last segment, my hashtag words of encouragement, it's to get out of your comfort zone. It's to be nervous. It's to have sweat stains under your armpits. It's to get out of your comfort zone. Whether it's a phobia or whether you want to grow, you'll never grow if you're comfortable. A life without adversity is no life at all. That's a Stoic philosopher said that, Seneca. You got to have some adversity in your life to grow. You got to be out of your comfort zone to grow. The way that a flower grows, it has to push through the dirt to grow. The way that a seed grows, it has to push through the seed pod to grow. You got to get out of your comfort zone in order to do anything worthwhile in this life. If you say to yourself, I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. That's when you need to do it. That's when you need to show up. 90% of life is showing up and participating. When you try something new, butterflies and anxiousness is a natural response for humans. It's a natural response because it's a flight or fight response. But when it's like your body trying to protect you during exercise saying, oh, I can't run that last mile. Oh, I can't do that last push-up. But if you use your mind and you know your mind is stronger than your body, you can get out of your comfort zone and you'll end up being comfortable. And your mind will be stronger and you'll tell your body, oh, I got to push through this. So once you become comfortable in that new situation, you'll get a sense of accomplishment and pride. And that's the reward for growth. You might not see a monetary reward. You might not see recognition from anybody. Your peers might not even recognize you. Friends of 20 plus years might not even say, good job, Leo, you did that. Or good job, Leo. Friends of 25 plus years might not even share your YouTube channel or tell you, my best friend has a radio show, but I'm not going to support it. I'm not going to share his channel. That doesn't matter. It's about you getting out of your comfort zone. It's about you growing and you being good with yourself. This has been Leo B. The Lion Show, coming to you live from 5 to 6 at Respectable Street here on Clematis in beautiful West Palm Beach, Florida. Have a great week, everybody. Leo be the Lion signing off.